Let's see, design development strategies through appropriate tools and graphic communication skills. You're going to do a lot of drawing. You're a lot of, again, figuring out what these sites are about. And then precedent typology case studies, a little bit of that, but this is more focused on just identifying these resources. Okay, so there's two books that you need to be aware of. Site Analysis, Diagramming Information for Architectural Design by Edward T. White. This book is available in the library. I don't think it's in print anymore, and if you can find it, a copy of it is probably pretty expensive. But I will say there are um, sources out there that you can find a copy of the complete book. I'll leave that to you to find that. It's not too hard, but this is the book, Site Analysis, Edward T. White. Yes, it's a little old school because it is, but is a keystone in understanding site analysis. What you were doing, though, is a component of this. So this does say site analysis, but you're actually developing the site conditions. And as you go through this text, go to the library, check it out, find your resource somehow. Again, I'm not going to tell you exactly how I found mine, but I found it. But in here, it talks about site conditions and building that background. You're not analyzing yet. You are just sort of building what is there. What do we see on the site now? What is the information that I can glean from that site plan? There's a vicinity map that gives you some context. Look at those things, right? And we'll look through this here. I'll show you a few examples, and then we'll talk a bit more about what the project is. So go through this, and then also be aware of these people are showing up late. Be aware of these diagrams, the way that they're drawn. Look at the information it's trying to tell you, right? Just through these simple diagrams. There's some great drawings in here to kind of look at. Look at the arrows. Look at the different dash lines of different types. The shading even. It's not hard to have a simple diagram that can convey a lot of information. So be cognizant of that. All right, so I want to get to a lot of this beforehand, yes, is important, but this starts to get into different conditions. It could be location, what about it? The context, what's around your site. Site, not so much zoning, but at least understanding, where's the envelope from which you can build, you can manipulate, you can work with. There's different identifiers on those site plans that have that. Legal, not so much, really, but there's natural physical features for sure. There could be man-made features such as other buildings around the site. So you want to read through here. Circulation, that's very key. That's a big one. That's a big one. Please make sure you mute. Please make sure you mute. Testing. Okay, thank you. Sensory, views in, views out. There's these things are very specifically given to you so that there are sort of some sensory issues or things that you could look at, some challenges there. There's different materials that might create that. There's different scenes that might create that. Utilities, you don't really have that. You have easements though, and what those mean. Human and cultural, again, you could read through these and kind of get some ideas. Climate, for sure. These are three different sites, three different areas, three different climates. So you're sort of collecting the data, right? You're building up sort of the background about these things. And then there's some more descriptors or some more descriptions about each of those things, like the physical man-made features. Again, you're going to need to do some reading and get some background. This is all a part of understanding and learning these things. So you're in sort of this collecting phase, and then you're going to do some diagramming basically, and you're going to convey them through these types of sketches. We'll talk a bit more about what that is. And I just want to get down to a couple of things here. Like here's some, location, the neighborhood, in the city. Okay, fine, but you have a context map, right? What does that mean? What's in that? What is it, again, what is it trying to communicate to me? So these are just different examples in different ways. You'll see like the author has sort of a, you know, I guess main graphic, primary graphic here to kind of look at. And then there's two or three examples that he provides that are kind of like you could do it different ways. It just depends on what you're trying to communicate. So work with your instructors so you make sure you understand what you're trying to communicate out about these different conditions. So you're going to have to do a little bit of research on your own, right? Read through this, find a copy, and study it. Vehicular patterns or pedestrian patterns for our sites, those could probably be combined because there's not a whole lot of vehicular travel. There could be potential pedestrian access or different areas where pedestrians might come in, depending on what you're trying to do. Solid void or landscape. We don't really have lighting, so that's something else. So again, you got to go through this and collect and understand what this is trying to talk about. But again, I really would emphasize, look at some of these diagrams and how this is drawn to convey some information. I think this will really help you. Contours, that's a big one. You already have that basically. You kind of have that knowledge already. Major land features, minor land features. There's a lot of stuff in here. Okay. So that's sort of the background of like some of the text or some of the things that you need to be aware of as you, as in this next bullet point, analyze each site and provide up to 12 and no less than 9 site conditions. You really want to understand what a site condition is. And again, reading through that text, talking it through with your professor, making sure you understand what that means. Also, refer to form, space, and order. You should all have that by now. Francis Ching book, pages 52 through 57. These are not the only sources. These are not the only things that you can look at, but they are examples of trying to provide 2 to 3 responses that mitigate or potentially resolve each condition. So let's say we do 12, we find 12 site conditions for one site. We need to have 2 to 3 responses that mitigate that condition. So again, you need to understand what the condition is and how you're going to potentially mitigate it. This is not design. This is just saying, okay, there's a lot of open space. It's a hot climate, a lot of sun. Maybe I just do a diagram that shows I want to provide shade, right? Something that's shade. It's not defined. It's not an umbrella. It's not a particular thing. It's just, again, the diagram and the idea. So you need to understand the difference there. Again, work with your please mute. It's always fun to get the echo there. So please work through that. Make sure you understand the difference between what the condition is and what that potential response is. And again, this is not designing quite yet. Your diagrams may not be to scale, but they need to be proportionate. That's going to make more sense when you're trying to lay all of these diagrams out on your sheets. And we'll talk about the size and layout here in a second. So you have to be very aware of like what size and how these are all going to fit on these sheets. You have to lay it out. You have to design your boards. You have to design your presentation. You got to figure out how those things are going to lay it out on the sheet. All right. All diagrams, line work, symbols, text, etc. is to be done by hand. These are things that you would do quickly. You would, get them like again, I think I explained this the first time with our Project One kickoff. The process you're going through this semester is usually quite reduced. So you need to take the time to understand how to do these things. This is stuff that is kind of quick. You'd be laying this out on trace. Again, just building an understanding of the site, but you need to do them well. So take the time to really draw these out. Again, get input from your professor, even your classmates that seem to be doing well. Use color when necessary to refine or clearly communicate the condition you want the viewer to understand. You may show some sort of arrow for wind, right? You get a sort of general sense of the direction of wind in the summer on the site. You probably wouldn't color it blue. You might color it like a red or an orange, right? For heat, for hot. Maybe blue or something like that, a more cool color for cold. So think about how you use color to also communicate graphically. Pretend no one is that you're not standing next to your work trying to verbalize it. Someone has to read it and understand it just by looking at it. Use appropriate or common symbols to communicate specific conditions. Again, that's stuff that you can talk with your professor about, like how do we do that? But again, that resource, that Edward T. White, is a really good example of some of how you diagram these things and what that can communicate. Try it out, draw it out, get feedback, get input on what you're doing. All right, so your deliverables, you're going to use a layout or sheet size of 18 inches by 24 inches. You may need to use multiple sheets. You might have to do that, right? Because if we're doing 9 or 12 conditions, depending on how you draw these and depending on how much room they take up on a sheet, you might have to use multiple sheets. Do not be surprised if you have to use at least two. Okay. Just think about that. If you're breaking that sheet size into a grid, how big that space you have for a condition and 2 to 3 responses. You only have a little bit of space. So you want to make sure you give it room so that someone understands. Let's see. So arrange your site conditions and responses into a comprehensive and readable format. So that's what I was just talking about. And the same sort of process as the first one. Upload one PDF of all your single or multiple sheets to Web Campus in the Google Drive folder, and try to keep it. You want to keep this below 20 megabytes. So you want to keep that file down and reduce it if you have to. Okay. So be aware of that because that's going to cause you trouble. You're going above that and trying to submit that through Web Campus. You want to keep it low as possible. Keep the quality, but keep it low. And you're encouraged to seek out other resources. Here's another book, Form and Fabric and Landscape Architecture, by Catherine D. That's a really good one for looking at sort of landscape, but there are some great sketches in there. And again, sort of looking at responses or looking at these site conditions, it can help you sort of define those things. You've got to do the research. You've got to get out there and you've got to look at things to kind of build and understand what these site conditions are. We will help you, obviously, but you need to start getting this material. Okay, and you start gathering this stuff. Okay, questions?
Is the fourth edition of the Ching book okay to use?
It might be. I would assume it's probably basically the same. I'm sure there's at least, it may not be exactly the same pages, but there's probably at least some of that in there, I would think. I don't think they would drop it, but you can check.
Perfect. Thank you.
Contents are the same.
Okay. Anyone else? Okay, I'm just going to bring this up because I can see it. Those of you who are sitting in studio space, you need to make sure that you're not taking space away from other students. If you're generally online, then that's who I'm speaking to. If you actually do have a physical space, that's cool. So I just want to make that note.
What kind of
Okay.
sheet do we use? Do we use tracing sheet or like cardboard sheets for the 18 by 24?
Well, think about this as these are drawings, so you wouldn't need cardboard. This is like thinking about this as a sheet size. So how you get there, and again, your instructors can help you. How you get there to that sheet size or how you put that all together is up to you. But whether you draw it out and you scan it and you color it, you have to figure that process out. So you wouldn't be using cardboard for this, I wouldn't think.
I have another question.
Okay.
So I plan to use Photoshop in addition to hand-drawn, I guess, like diagrams to like show my site conditions. If I already have a library of site conditions available that I've been working on, can I use that even if you've seen them before?
I will talk to you separately.
Okay.
I know where you're going.
They're really good. I think they're really
Uh,
good. So
mhm. Okay. Anybody else?
Are you able to provide us like an example of a finished work?
No, not
Okay.
at all. You need to do your own work because if I show you an example of a finished work, then that's what people tend to do. So you have to be able to do this. This is design. This is all part of the learning. This is all part of the understanding of how to put something together that says, okay, I got to take this thing and do something with it, right? So you have to produce that on your own. You've been given the criteria, so now you need to develop it. Okay, my class, stay on. Good luck.